In this video, I'm going to walk you through a daily mobility routine that you can perform at home with very little equipment. So we're going to start with a rectus femoris stretch. The rectus femoris is one of your quad muscles. It's a hip flexor and a knee extender. So in order to stretch it effectively, we're going to need hip extension and knee flexion. So how we're going to get that is we're going to get into a half kneeling position with the back foot elevated slightly on the wall. You want to be careful not to put that foot up too high, because then it's going to rotate your pelvis forward and put you in extension in your low back. And that's not the position that we want to stretch this muscle in. So in order to fix that, just bring the foot down a little bit, tuck the tailbone underneath you by squeezing your right butt, drive the right knee down and get tall on that side. And then you should feel a stretch across the front of your hip flexor and then also in your quad if your foot is slightly elevated. The next stretch is the all fours glute stretch. Get into this all fours position, step one leg back, cross the other leg under, and then support that heel with the opposite knee. From there, you're just going to sit your butt straight back, pushing through the floor, kind of pushing your hips down and back, and you should feel a stretch in the back pocket. You can play with different torso positions, torso higher or lower, depending on what part of your glute you want to stretch. Next, we have an adductor wall stretch. So for this one, it's pretty easy. Just get close to the wall, scoot all the way up there. Once you're here, you can just perform nice, quiet breathing. And then if you want to add a little bit of overpressure, you can just use your hands on the inside part of your thighs, just pushing down slightly. Next up, we got the one leg deep squat hold. For this one, you're using your body weight to essentially sit you into one side of your squat. And with your opposite hand, you're just holding your heel down so that it stays on the floor, so that you get that end range of dorsiflexion in your ankle. And the best cue that I like to give in this position is to try and sit your back pocket right over your heel. You can hold for time, or you can kind of groove that position by allowing your knee to come backwards and then sitting more deeper into the position and then coming back out and repeating. Next up, we have the roll and split reach. This is basically just an inner thigh and hamstring stretch on the reach. But then what I really like about this exercise is it really relaxes your back. So just pull your knees to your chest, roll back onto the upper portion of your back. So really get your hips up there, and then just roll forward, split, reach. Simple. Now we're on to just grooving the basic movement patterns. So first up, we got the squat. The goal in the squat is to keep the torso relatively vertical as you drop your hips directly over top of your heels. It helps to hold the light weight out in front of your body to serve as some counterbalance so you don't feel like you're going to fall backwards. Work within whatever range of motion that you have available to you. This movement should not be painful. We're basically just looking to move through full range of motion, keeping the torso vertical, dropping the hips straight down. If you need to elevate your heels by placing a small 5-pound plate underneath your heels or performing this movement on a slant board, that's fine. But ideally, we get to the point where we can do straight, full range of motion squats on flat ground. Next up, we got the hinge. Again, you can use a small weight for this one, or you could just reach your hands down and shift your hips backwards. So in order to do a good hinge, drop your hands or the weight straight down, your hips go straight backwards, and your shin bones stay straight. So straight down, straight back, shins straight. If you do that motion where you shift your hips backwards through space, you're automatically going to load your posterior chain muscles, so that's your hamstrings and your glutes, and then you're going to put them into a position where they have to be the things that power you forwards in order to stand back up. So the difference between a squat and a deadlift is in the squat, the pelvis goes down, and in the deadlift or the hinge, the pelvis goes backwards. Last up, we got lateral lunges. So this one works really well with a kettlebell, but a dumbbell would also be fine. You can do this exercise on flat ground, or it'll actually help you to see the variation later where we're on like a 2-inch block. So you could use a block or a big book or anything like that. The key to an effective lateral lunge: the head, the chest bone, so the sternum, the belly button, the knee, and the foot all have to be in a straight vertical line. By doing this, you're going to be getting into the frontal plane of your pelvis. So anytime you hear frontal plane of the pelvis, we got to think inner thighs and opposite glute. Inner thighs on the stance leg, opposite glute on the other leg. The most common error that people make when doing lateral lunges is they allow the knee that they're shifting towards to roll outside of the body. This is not effectively going to load your frontal plane pelvis muscles. So make sure you keep that knee and foot exactly where it is, and then you're just moving your pelvis and rib cage on top of that. So the pelvis is rotating towards, the rib cage is rotating towards, and then as you return to standing, everything rotates back away. This is the half kneeling hip lift. I really love this exercise. It feels great. So you're going to get into a half kneeling position, tuck that tailbone, get tall on that side. And what I'm doing with my hands is I'm actually pushing into the wall and slightly pulling down on them so that I can feel a little bit more abs. That's going to hold on to the front part of my pelvis also. So it kind of works with my back leg glute to rotate the pelvis, hold it there, give it a little bit of ab support. And then in this position, we're just lifting the opposite thigh upwards by using the hip muscles, so like the hip flexor area, and then holding position for 5 seconds. So to help you with kind of adding a little bit more like muscular drive and effort into the lift, go ahead and do that on your exhale. So you're going to take a breath in when the foot is on the ground, exhale, pull down on the wall, squeeze the opposite glute, get tall on that side, and lift that knee upwards towards your chest. Next up, we have the slouch. This is a great exercise. It's kind of complicated, so I'll walk you through it. The first thing that you have to do when you're performing a slouch is give a big exhale and relax your entire spine. This is so important because oftentimes when people do slouches, they just start to extend their back and then they don't feel what's happening in their lower body with the weight shift that we're going to do. So remember that, exhale, just like allow those arms to get super heavy. So you should feel your shoulder blades coming across the back of your rib cage, relax your entire back, and then do the movement. This is basically a squat with a weight shift at the bottom, with the intention of, as you're returning back to standing, staying forward over the middle and forefoot, as opposed to coming straight back up as if you're pushing through your heel. So on the way down, you're going to stay relaxed, stay slouched, and then drop straight down over your heel. At the bottom, you're going to slightly shift everything forwards as if you're a sprinter trying to come out of the blocks. And on the return to standing, you're just going to try and stay forward as you stand up. So don't stand up and then come back. Stay forward and try and delay the knee extension from happening. So don't allow that knee to just snap back. Keep it forward after you shift and then bring the hip through as you stand up. Squat down on the heel. Shift. Stand up while staying forward, so that's delaying knee extension while the hip comes through. Next up, we have a plank progression. So this is basically an exercise to help you set your rib cage and your pelvis in the right position while you're doing a plank. A lot of people don't think planks are very hard, but if you set it up the right way, planks are extremely hard. Get into this Sphinx position where your chest is on the ground, you're relaxed, but you're propped up on your elbows. From there, you're going to take a deep breath in, and then on your exhale, you're going to get into a plank position on your knees. The two things that we're going to focus on is pushing your chest bone away from the floor, so pushing your upper back up towards the ceiling, and tucking your tailbone underneath you. So you exhale up to this position, you're going to take a deep breath in, and then on your exhale, you're going to hold everything in place, and then just lift your knees 1 centimeter off the floor. And then you're going to perform a full breath cycle. So it's a full inhale and then a full exhale, and then you're going to inhale all the way down. So I'll take you through a rep. Take a deep breath in, exhale, lift, push the chest away from the floor, tuck the tailbone, take a deep breath in, exhale, lift the knees, holding position, keep pushing away from the floor, keep tucking, take a deep breath in that position. Exhale, hold, slow down the breath, and on the inhale, you're going to go all the way down to the floor. The last exercise in this entire series is a cross connect. There are 2 different patterns that we're going to do, both reverse lunges and RDLs. In both cases, you're going to turn your pelvis and rib cage towards your front leg on the way down and away from the front leg on the way up. Just like the lateral lunges, make sure that as you're turning towards that front leg, you're keeping the knee nice and straight and you're using your inner thigh to pull you into that position. And then on the return to standing, push through the ground, get tall on that side. So similar to the half kneeling hip lift, you're using a lot of hamstring and a lot of glute as you connect your elbow to your opposite knee. For these ones, I like to go really slow so that I make sure that I'm staying balanced over my foot, making sure that my knee stays nice and straight, and then making sure that I'm really driving the stance leg down into the ground as I cross connect to the opposite side. For all the exercises, aside from the static stretches where you're holding for one set for a predetermined amount of time, longer if you need a little bit more help in the mobility department, and shorter if you don't. Go ahead and perform all these movements with however many sets and reps that you feel like your body needs. I gave recommendations for how many repetitions you should do for each set, but if you need more sets or less, then scale the workout to reflect those needs.